Well, there you have it, the big government voices there taking us through the decisions on the FDI front. Joining us now to decode the FDI fine print and really figure out how big or big bang these reforms are. Joining me here in London, Amit Tulsian of KPMG. Amit, appreciate you joining us. Also joining us in India is Nishit Desai of Nishit Desai and Associates, and with us Vivek Gupta of BMR Advisors. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us. Let me start by asking you, Amit, the timing, of course, is fortunate because the Prime Minister arrives in UK in about 48 hours from now. Given the slew of changes, and there are about more than a dozen changes that the government has announced, not all significant or meaningful in that sense, but has it really changed the mood ahead of the Prime Minister's visit?
I think, first of all, thanks, Shireen, and welcome to our offices here. It does have an impact. One of the things which, a couple of my clients asked me after the weekend news on Bihar is that what impact does that have on the visit here? And I feel that there is an impact. There is a positive impact of these announcements coming in. I think it's a welcome news. We do need to go back into the details of these news and announcements in terms of, kind of analyze it, see what it means to the businesses. But if I understand correctly, there's an announcement in relation to defense. There is an announcement in relation to single brand. Yeah. And I think some of these announcements are relevant to UK businesses. So I'm looking forward to actually getting into more details on that.
Well, let's talk about some of those details now. And Vivek, let me ask you, about the most meaningful changes that have been announced as part of the policy announcements that have come in from the government today. And let me start by asking you about perhaps the two sectors that are most positively impacted, construction and media. I'll come to defense and banking in just a bit. But let's start by talking about construction, because there were changes that were brought in as far as FDI were concerned last year. The government has taken some of those steps forward. And of course, the big one is allowing FDI into completed projects. Would you say that of the slew of announcements today, media and construction would really be the big game-changing ideas?
Well, absolutely. Actually, I would rephrase the headline at the top of your show to say Big Bang not in 15 sectors, but Big Bang in 2 sectors. Incremental changes in 13 and Big Bang in 2 sectors, and construction and media would be the top picks there. Construction actually, so real estate needs money to come in. I think the government has realized that we need foreign direct investment to flow in, and the fact that FDI could not flow in due to timing restrictions, FDI could not flow in due to the fact that there were lock-in restrictions or transfer restrictions when the projects were not developed, was hampering the way the sector was shaping up. So yes, construction perhaps the biggest win today, and within that sector I would expect significant foreign direct investment now to flow through. The other ancillary advantage of this is that I think there is a significant amount of banking exposure to our real estate developer stocks, to our real estate developer companies. And perhaps by providing a channel through which equity money can flow into real estate companies, the government is also looking at handling some of the problems that the banks are facing. So I think it has a double impact. The construction changes of last year have now been fully implemented in a sense of speaking, in a manner of speaking, and therefore I count that as the biggest win for these changes. Apart from that, of course, media is positive. One would have liked to see print media move in tandem with broadcast news media, but that has not happened. And the rest, frankly, are more incremental. Yes, certainly positive.
And you know why that hasn't happened, Vivek?
Tell me that.
Okay, Nishit Desai, let me get you in on the conversation. Vivek, they're saying very clearly that out of the 15 announcements that have been made by the government, only 2 are meaningful. The rest are positive, but tweaks. Let me ask you about some of the tweaks that the government has done pertaining to the defense sector as well as the banking sector, where it is now the composite cap applies. So the sectoral limit has not been changed, but it's been made composite. And of course, as the Secretary was just clarifying now, defense will not have to go through the FIPB route up to 49%. It will be through the auto route. How significant will both these changes be for the defense sector as well as for private banking in specific?
I think the life has been made a lot easier, I think, and obviously this will increase the confidence in the Indian system. Already, what had happened, as you know, after Bihar elections, there was some concern about whether investment will be impacted adversely or otherwise. But this announcement comes at a very right time. Of course, it's a Diwali time, and also Prime Minister's visit to UK and incoming weeks to Singapore. I think we needed to communicate to the whole world that reforms are still on track. They will continue to happen despite what. And I believe personally that even Mr. Nitish Kumar is not going to backtrack on the reforms. So on the whole, it is going to only help improve the investment environment. I think that was the most important thing. Yes, big bang reforms, yes, even if there are 2 or 3 or 4, without going into those details, more important thing is not just 1 or 2 reforms, but the micro level problems that cause a lot of harassment, ambiguities in terms of investment.
Yeah.
And this is just about the right time. I say right time because it's November, December. So lots of large companies or corporates abroad begin to develop their plans and investment plans for the next year. Many funds allocations are being decided at this point in time. So this is in some ways very timely for them to decide how they should look at India overall. And
Okay. So you're saying that it will change the way that foreign investors will look at India and will look at India in a much more favorable light. But if I could just talk about the details, and Vivek, let me ask you this because, specifically as far as banking and defense is concerned, where now we have the composite cap come in, so that is certainly going to make a life a lot easier for private sector banks. We've already got positive comments coming in from the likes of Chanda Kochar. So that's a step clearly in the right direction. But would you say that as far as e-commerce is concerned and retail specifically, there's been an opportunity lost? They've made some changes which are positive, but on the whole, it's been an opportunity lost.
Yes, I think I tend to agree. On the banking side, they had this opportunity when they notified composite caps a few months ago. But then at that time, they came out with a clarification that that does not apply to banks. I'm glad to see that that anomaly has been done away with. On the e-commerce and retail side, I certainly see that an opportunity has been lost. Yes, some marginal tweaks have been made. So a single brand retail store owner can also sell through the e-commerce channel. That's only logical. That has been provided. The fact that FDI can come into Indian brands also is again logical. There was no reason that a Nike could come in with its own store, but an Indian brand could not attract private equity investment, which was FDI, when it was setting up its store. So I think that's also logical. I think the issue that has been entirely skirted, though, is the entire issue around e-commerce. And I hold both the governments, this present one and the previous government, which actually opened up FDI in retail, as not tackling this basic e-commerce issue. And the risk to that is we're already seeing judicial intervention happen in the case with Delhi High Court issuing notice to the government on bringing parity between e-commerce norms and retail norms. So we don't want on policy matters more intervention to occur, and therefore the government must make its policy stand on e-commerce clear. And it must make its policy stand on e-commerce clear in view of what is already the position existing in terms of foreign investment within this sector. It's a sector that is seeing complex structures in the form of marketplaces, etc. But that entire issue on e-commerce retail has been entirely skirted. The other incremental change, of course, in retail that has been made is that manufacturers who are now allowed to sell through the e-commerce can also...
Yeah, they can now also sell. I'll come back to you in just a second, Vivek, but, let me ask you this, Amit, and we're talking about FDI flowing into India. UK, amongst the G20 nations, is the largest contributor of foreign direct investment into India. I don't know if I can say EY in the KPMG office in London, but I'm going to say it anyway. EY put out a report recently saying that India is the most attractive destination as far as foreign direct investment is concerned. On the back of what we've heard today and the general sense that, things are starting to pick up as far as India is concerned, of course not being reflected in corporate earnings, but from an ease of business point of view and a reform point of view, do you believe that we are now likely to see big ticket FDI coming in? We've already seen an increase in FDI.
Yeah, so I would agree with the point that India is a very attractive destination now when compared with the emerging markets globally, and its size of emerging markets when it compares to China, Brazil, etc. The point, if you really look from an FDI perspective, I think there are 2 or 3 points which are important. One is image of the country, which is very important to actually how do you showcase your country and the opportunities there in the country. Another one is the market-based reforms. Another one I would talk about is the institutional reforms. When it comes to showcasing India at a global platform, I think Mr. Modi has done a phenomenal job there. And I'm looking forward to his visit here, because this is exactly what the diaspora and the investing community in these respective locations look for. But this is not enough. I think institutional reforms and market reforms are very important. So one of the reforms which Mr. Modi has taken up is ease of doing business in India. Very recently, we actually helped the government to actually come up with a report which ranks different states based on reform parameters which the central government had announced, which to my mind is a very important institutional reform which Mr. Modi is bringing in. As far as market reforms are concerned, it is very important to actually reflect on it. One of the key components of a market being successful is capital. And I think the debt market development and their desire to actually create one very successul debt market in India is one key step towards it.
Okay. Nishit Desai, let me ask you the same question that I was just putting forward to Amit, and whether we can argue about the significance of all the announcements that have been made today. But in general, do you believe that from a foreign investor point of view, while retrospective tax issues continue, that the climate has changed perceptibly and that we are likely to see incremental FDI flows and perhaps fresh investments from fresh investors now coming into India?
Yes, what has been done is very good, but still what I see in the global marketplace is that on infrastructure, people are still reluctant to come. What are the things to be done is a separate subject matter of discussion. But I think this is where we really need to get more attraction. At the moment, there is some caginess on the infrastructure sector. Number 2, maybe we are in the process of now renegotiating some of the bilateral investment protection treaties. That's where it's going to be a little tricky. Number 3, as far as e-commerce is concerned, there is already a marketplace mechanism, where it's not like multi-brand retailing per se, but it's a platform. So world has moved in terms of valuations from original products to services to platforms. And as far as platforms are concerned, they are still open to the foreign investment. So what you're seeing in the recent times is investment in the platforms and, of course, in the pharma side and some of the logistics companies. But I think really speaking, where we need investment is on infrastructure side, and we should still get some more push from the government on the infrastructure side. So, we need to create that ecosystem. And but that's something. But what I see at this point in time, we will see of investment into India, particularly in the defense and broadcasting, as well as in the other sectors which are just discussed. So I'm pretty happy as to what's happening, but I'm slightly cagey.
All right. So
not too much happening on the infrastructure side, not being heard on that.
Okay, so with those caveats, gentlemen, we are going to have to wrap up this conversation. As we've discussed, at least 2 or 3 of the changes that the government has announced, 2 in specific, are big-ticket items. Those are game-changing ideas. The others are a step in the right direction, positive movements for certain. So, of course, a lot more will need to be done on the part of trying to revive the investment cycle, but a good start has been made in a fresh wave of announcements that have come in today from the government ahead of the Prime Minister's visit to the UK. Amit, thanks very much for joining us here at the KPMG office in London. Nishit Desai and Vivek Gupta, as always, a pleasure having you on India Business Hour. That's the big story tonight. Nantara, there's plenty more to talk about.
That's right, Shri. Now let's talk about politics. It's the old guard versus the new in BJP.